Hello and welcome to Game of Thrones off-season. Tonight we're discussing the psychology of Game of Thrones with Dr. Haig, Goenjian. Stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Yes,
never get
we're
tired
back.
of the song. I love this tune.
Being here. Tonight we're discussing Game of Thrones and the psychology of all the characters. And we have a doctor in studio. Before I get to him, I'm your host, Kristen Elizabeth Snyder. I also have Ryan Malaty with me.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan Malaty. Happy to be here. We got some fun news and a really cool guest. Looking forward to it.
And I'm Dave Child, and I'm also here.
And as I promised, we have a doctor in studio.
Is there a doctor in the house?
Dr. Haig Goenjian. He graduated from Tulane Medical School and received his psychiatry training at UCLA. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
So are you a psychiatrist or a psychologist?
I'm a psychiatrist.
And what is the big difference there?
I'm a drug dealer. Medication.
So psychiatrists...
Legal drug dealer.
Illegal.
So psychiatrists deal drugs and psychologists don't.
All right, I'm
That's
gonna
the
go
biggest.
ahead and
I just am
interrupt
curious.
that.
I'm just
If
curious.
you guys have a question for Dr. Haig Goenjian, you can call in at 424-256-1633. Again, that's 424-256-1633. We take UPMC, we take Blue Cross Blue Shield, Kaiser,
You know, and
tacos.
just kisses from mothers.
Kisses from
on boo-boos
I'm
from
just
mothers.
kidding, guys. It's free to call. Give us a ring.
Also, I'm on the chat, so
Awesome.
feel free to chat on the live stream if you're happen to be listening right now live. Oh.
So before we get into the psychology of Game of Thrones, we're going to talk about news.
AfterBuzz TV News.
This is what's happening in the Game of Thrones world.
Tell
If
us,
you
tell
haven't
us.
been watching for a while,
What's going on?
some fan favorite characters have been seen in production fighting on the same side.
Uh-oh.
Can you guys guess who it is?
Is
I mean,
it
we saw them last season.
John
They were
and
close.
Daenerys?
No.
Pretty
I mean,
clear.
I would guess that's also happening.
Is
but
it a Lannister and a Lannister?
No, but you're close. So it's Bran and Jaime
Fighting on the
have
same
been seen
side.
during production fighting on the same side.
I was hoping it was Hot Pie. I want a Hot Pie to come back, take his hot pies, go after those whites.
I wasn't expecting that at all.
He might be there too.
You might be there.
But I'm excited about this because we thought that Jaime was going to desert Cersei. Finally, it seems like he did, at least for a period of time.
I hope so.
I still don't know how I feel about that.
I'm happy about it.
I know most people are, but I don't go with the grain a lot of times. I liked seeing Jaime fight for the baddies, you know? I don't know. Something about having a character that you can like really root for, even though he's doing the wrong thing. It's conflicting, and I love it.
Right.
Come on! All
What
right,
kind of news
anyway.
do you have for us, Ryan?
Well, speaking of people witnessing things happening on set, there was just a few days ago, there was released some set images. Were leaked from on-set filming Game of Thrones. There was a big green screen production set that was, it looked like it had to do with a White Walker army. And you had the Night King there, and you had what seemed to be a Dothraki horde as whites. And that leads us to believe that the army doesn't do so great when they're traveling north to
Yeah.
go
Well,
against
they're
the Night
mostly
King.
wearing loincloths, so it's kind of it's gonna be cold.
Yeah, they didn't really...
That's
you
gonna
know.
take most of them. They're just gonna be like, it's chilly.
Yeah, how do
They'll
horses
lie
do
down.
in the snow anyway, you know?
They die, and then the whites start like
That's right.
riding
have
them.
you ever played
That's right.
Oregon Trail? Come on!
You have died of dysentery.
So
Yeah,
get them.
so behind the scenes, we're looking at possible conflict between that Dothraki horde that's heading north, and you know, maybe the Night King gets a little stronger and can use one more thing besides the Viserion, the dragon that he took down,
Yeah,
and brought back up.
The Dothraki are really good at riding horses, and they could be dead horses.
That's
And
not,
so
yeah,
they're
that's
riding
not
down.
Yeah,
gonna help
do your
us.
skills directly translate after death? You know,
Yeah, I think so.
They
like
become ice horses.
if you're a really good fighter in life and you come back as a white, does that mean you're a really good White Walker
The
fighter?
dragon is still dragony.
He's
Yeah.
Still
certainly
doing dragon skills.
still killing it at being a dragon. You're
He's
right.
not just being a normal lizard.
No, he's flying.
Dave,
He's
what
blowing
do you
stuff
got
up.
for us, news-wise?
Speaking of leaks.
Yay!
Oh boy!
Juicy.
So this is interesting. The U.S. has formally sanctioned the hacker who leaked Game of Thrones information last year.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys remember this, but last year HBO was actually held up to ransom because there was a hacker who claimed he had leaked episodes and also pictures, emails, as well as people's contact info.
Wow.
And he tried to ransom HBO for $6 million in Bitcoin. And of course, his username was Littlefinger66.
Yes.
Because he's still a fan at heart. He's still a fan.
He just wants to rob the show
Yeah.
and steal from the rest of us.
He's also he also hacked on behalf of the Iranian government. He used to hack for the Iranian government, and he did this on the behest of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. So, wow.
So you're moving on up
Yeah.
from the Iranian government to HBO. I mean, that's a huge leap.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it also just means they didn't go after just someone's 12-year-old son who's in grandma's basement hacking HBO, which is what I assume most hackers are.
Yeah.
My
And-
question is, you know, we asked for $6 million in Bitcoin last year, and HBO's held out this long.
Right.
Now what is it? Is it like $4?
Well, now they know who the guy is.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
So his name
know
is
his real name.
Bazad Masri. I'm saying it wrong because I'm a horrible American. But he's they're sanctioning him. They're going after him. So
You don't mess with our celebrities over
you don't
here.
mess.
You
I
don't
mean,
mess.
obviously, don't get involved in the Game of Thrones world.
No, you're gonna lose. Haven't you ever watched the show?
Right.
Seriously.
You start threatening people, you die. That's what happens.
And he also did leak people's like phone numbers and addresses and stuff. So
I think he worked for Cambridge Analytica.
Likely.
I'd believe it.
All right, that's enough of news for me personally. I want to throw a game at you guys.
Oh, yeah, I love
It's game
games.
time.
Game.
Game night. Let's do
All
it.
right, so we're bringing the doctor into this game. Are you ready,
Okay.
Doc?
I'm ready.
All right, so it's the diagnosis game. I'm going to say a diagnosis, and I'm going to give some options, and you guys are going to pick the character and defend it of why you think that character has that diagnosis.
Deal.
Oh, okay.
What do I do?
You help us
Okay,
decide
I
the
can do
right
that.
Now,
answer,
I
because
think
we're
we-
going to probably be wrong.
We might have forgot to ask, have you seen Game of Thrones?
I've seen every episode and maybe like 3 seasons twice just to
Great.
So
clarify.
yes.
So yes.
That's a yes.
I want to say, though, as a doctor, these are his personal opinions as a
Yes.
doctor, and if you don't live in Westeros, don't apply these to your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just
Well, I
throwing
mean-
that out there.
I have some meaningful things to say.
Okay, listen,
Just not medically licensed meaningful things to say.
Yes.
just don't come back at us if this doesn't work
But
for
what we're
you.
saying, what works for Bran does not necessarily work for you.
Right.
Same advice may not apply.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
first diagnosis. Okay, sexual sadism disorder, sadistic personality disorder. Focus on the sexual sadism disorder.
Got it already. I know.
First option, Ramsay Bolton.
Done.
Second option, Joffrey Baratheon.
No.
Third option, Melisandre.
It's got to be, it's the sadism, the sexual sadism.
Yeah.
Makes
Yes.
it Ramsay. If
Yeah.
it was
I
just
agree.
plain old run everyday sadism,
Yeah.
then it would maybe be Joffrey.
Yeah,
but-
Joffrey wasn't interested in sex at all.
I mean,
from what we
Ramsay
saw.
gets like a tremendous pleasure out of harming others. Doc, what do you think?
Well, I think you guys' instincts serve you correct. I think that it would be Ramsay. You know, I think sadism automatically, you don't even need to put the sexual part. It's a sexual thing.
Is it?
It is.
Is
Yeah.
sadism always sexual?
No, it's pleasure. But, you know, certain psychologies, like Freud would say every pleasure is sex. So that's to be debated. But
Freud thinks everything
Freud
is
thinks
sex.
everything is sex. Yeah.
He's not the only one.
No.
Just kidding.
Oh.
Oh, sassy.
Okay, well, yes, I think Ramsay Bolton because his just general lack of remorse from others' suffering. Okay, second disorder, antisocial personality disorder.
Okay.
Number 1, Bran. Number 2, Cersei. Number 3, the Hound.
Ooh. Antisocial personality disorder.
Do we think?
Well-
See, well, it also depends on like, because the three-eyed raven Bran is a lot. He's a lot more emo than the no-eyed raven Bran. But I think it's the Hound. I think the Hound doesn't like to be around anyone, and he's very antisocial.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I think Cersei doesn't have an antisocial disorder. She just doesn't like people, and that's just.
See, she wants to be in control of people.
I disagree. I think Cersei is my choice because she does a lot of things that are antisocial, and that she does it to basically like gain power. But I mean, who's her friend? Who does she hang out with? At least the Hound like hangs out with Arya.
Her
and
family.
Hang out with that band, the Misfits, and the church group. I mean, he had a bunch of friends. But Cersei,
she hangs out with her brother a lot.
Oh.
Is like antisocial, does that mean, what does that mean?
Yeah, so I think in like common language, antisocial guys like associated with someone that doesn't like to socialize with people, right? Doesn't like someone that stays to themselves, but not not psychiatrically or psychologically. Antisocial would be someone that has basically like a pervasive disregard for right and wrong, for the feelings and of well-being of others. So it would be, in this case, it would be Cersei.
Oh.
ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
All right. So it's not just a lonely.
Because I just thought he was like, I just want to go home and read. Because that's the Hound.
right. Or right. I don't know what it is.
I want to eat a chicken.
Eat what you eat.
Go to bed.
All right. Our last diagnosis: post-traumatic stress disorder. Number one.
Everyone in Game of Thrones.
Number one, Arya.
Nah, she's taking it like a
number
champ.
2, the Hound. Choice number 3, Theon.
Okay, this is interesting because I feel like both Theon's obviously messed up. I'd love to hear your diagnosis. Not Theon, but Reek. He's like split personality, like. But what was the second choice?
Arya, the Hound,
And the
Theon.
Hound. Well, see, the Hound, he's all messed up from the fire, from getting his face put in the fire.
But I think it's both. I think this is a trick answer because I think it's both Theon and the Hound.
Yeah, PTSD for both of them.
Because they just suffer in different ways, but it's probably still the same disorder.
Yeah, I think. I mean, the key is disorder. Is it like you could have trauma? A lot of people have had trauma. Whether you have PTSD, I mean, the Hound. It's changed his behavior. He can't be around fire.
He's afraid of it.
Reek, maybe at one point, Reek was the one we were talking about, right?
Theon became
Theon,
Reek.
yeah.
Reek. He's at the end of the season. He's sort of not disordered. He's like overcoming. So does he have PTSD at the end? I don't know. He's gotten. I mean, he has like Stockholm syndrome. He had it at least at one point where he was like kind of giving in and having an alliance with his oppressor, and so he was sort of beat into submission. PTSD, I mean, you could say it, but it wouldn't really be 100% of qualifying what this guy's going through.
You also have to remember Theon used his weaknesses to his benefit. He was like, please kick me in the balls because I have no more balls.
Yeah, he thought he deserved it.
Yeah.
He felt so guilty. He thought he deserved the pain.
But he also, that fight when the
balls,
guy kicks him in the balls and he's just like, ha ha, it's my superpower now.
And he did that rope-a-dope. He could endure the pain because he's been through so much suffering. He got beat up and didn't matter. He was ready to go.
But at the same time, isn't that also what the Hound is doing? Because he's joined the Brotherhood.
Right.
And they're all about like worshiping fire and he looked into the fire.
Yes, confronting their weaknesses. These are strong characters.
Yeah,
Isn't that considered a type of therapy? Fear therapy, where you're afraid of spiders, so you get put in a room full of spiders.
Absolutely, it's exposure therapy. You get like doses of exposure to whatever it is that you fear, and over time you build a tolerance.
It's it's funny you should say that because I'm terrified of beautiful women.
Oh,
absolutely terrified.
Yeah.
And of steak and eggs. That too.
Right.
So if we can get me in a room just filled with those things, just to exposure therapy, I need help.
Beautiful women and steak and eggs. He just
quite
wants
sound like a fear.
beautiful women covered in steak and eggs.
This
sounds like a dream you had
No,
last night.
it's terrifying.
we will do dream interpretations later, Ryan. So I want Dr. Haig to sort of discuss what we wanted to talk about in regards to the characters and the supernatural element, because that's how they're different than us as humans.
Right.
Yes. I mean, if you like, when I was thinking about, which is a big topic, really, the psychology of Game of Thrones, I'm like, to talk about human psychology is already hard enough, but to keep it practical, the difference between, I mean, that's the way I could see it, the Game of Thrones and our world is sort of, their laws of physics are different. They have the supernatural existences, phenomena that it really balances the power and the relationships in certain ways, and there's imbalances in things. So certain people have certain powers that make them leaders and whatever, and it affects their relationships. It affects their psyche, their emotions, their thoughts, and how they deal with things. Right. So I think it's a cool point to start with, their supernatural powers. Yeah.
Cool. So let's talk about Arya's supernatural power first. It's obviously the fact that she's part of the Faceless Men, and she can change faces and then be those characters.
That one little thing that she does.
Small little thing.
Just a little thing that she likes to do.
She inhabits the personalities, personas of other people, and then kills people.
Yeah,
that's
she kills people.
She kills people and
kills.
Is that psychologically damaging to take people's faces
and
then kill them?
Listen, they deserved it. She doesn't kill anyone who didn't. Did she?
She enjoys it though. So. She enjoys killing people who deserve it in her eyes. Right? She makes the judgment. And she slits their throats, and she gets pleasure out of killing people who, in her eyes, deserve to die.
Right, right. Yes, that's true. So, I mean, what was the question? No, I'm just kidding.
I guess, yeah.
No, so for her, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting. I don't know if the creators thought about this, but she went through like a ton of trauma. She was abandoned. She was taken away from her family. And if you look at people that are traumatized, is your sort of psychological well-being or makeup will determine how you cope with that. And a lot of times people that have like split personality disorder, like what they call dissociative identity disorder, there's a ton of trauma, and so it's almost as if she has like, they're like putting this like incarnate way of like this tangible form of split personality, but she's overcoming. She's not really split. She's like almost unifying the Starks by utilizing this power. So she,
like what she did with Walter Frey.
Like what she did with
like basically reinforcing her.
I mean,
name.
whether or not it's healthy, I don't know. Is killing healthy? I mean,
well, not just killing. She cut them up and baked them into a pie, just so she could enjoy that moment of him eating his own family. Right? That's not necessarily healthy mercenary vigilante justice.
But she got the power back for her family name.
I know.
That's more important because the Starks were tarnished after that, after what he did to them, and he killed all of them. And so the fact that she went in there and she let everyone know, hey, the Starks did this.
Look, like her archetype, like her makeup from day one was warrior. She was not supposed to be trained to be a warrior, but she was one and became one. That's how she like manifested herself. So, her power, she seeks blood. That's who she is, and I mean, I'll say this. Arya would never come to me for therapy because she didn't have any problems if you ask her.
Right.
So she was having a great time. Whether or not that's good or bad, that's a moral argument. I don't know.
Yeah, it might be more philosophy than psychology. But I was thinking about how, like, what you described, that's, as we brought up sadism earlier, it sounded very sadistic, but at the same time, it's revenge. So is revenge inherently sadistic because it's taking pleasure out of pain again?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so, but it's curious to see how she'll turn out because I don't like sadism. Someone that's like sadistic, like that's all they want, right? Like I hope, at least the way I see it, because I like her so much, there's a greater good in her mind,
And she has that list that she's working down,
right? Because she could easily like abuse that power, and not even to kill. She could use that power to gain wealth, or she could have made herself the queen herself, and she didn't. So she has values. The times are different then. I mean, bloodshed's just rampant.
The times were different in this fantastic land.
Okay, let's move on to Cersei, who doesn't necessarily have a supernatural element to herself, but she has Qyburn. She has who creates like the science of their time, like the wildfire, like the milk of the poppy, and the mountain.
She also has a prophecy that she's living up to this entire time, which is a very supernatural element in a world where prophecy can be true. She is told a prophecy and she's fulfilling it. So that's kind of this fate that she has to live up against, which is pretty negative. The prophecy is mostly negative.
It's not a helpful supernatural
No, that's got to be tough to be told at a young age that all your kids are going to die.
At the same time, she was told she was going to be queen, so she kind of had that
but she wanted
positive thing.
Yeah, but could you imagine being told your future and then it starts coming true? Like that's got to be something's got to be going on psychologically for for
I
her.
won't even do those genetic things, those genetic testing things.
Oh, God.
I don't
I
want to
really
know.
wouldn't do
Yeah.
it.
Let me live in bliss.
One time a friend of mine in high school said, you know what the last song you'll hear before you die is? And then he said, it's Mac the Knife. And then he walked away, and now I can never hear Mac the Knife all the way through. I have to like turn to another song.
That's a terrible
Wait, how's that
thing.
song go?
I'm not going to sing Mac
I
the
love
Knife.
that song, actually.
It's
Steve,
a
you in
great
the book?
song.
How's it go?
I can't wait till one
It's
day
so
I'm
good.
old and decrepit and I'm laying in my bed and I'm like, please play Mac the Knife. That would be great.
Such a good song.
But until then, I'll hear another song.
Well, obviously, I want to get back to Cersei
Right. At least there'll
and
be
the
speakers
fact
when you
that
die.
Yeah.
she's reliant on humans, like the Golden Company that she's just purchased. Like, she doesn't have like a supernatural power to rely on, you know. And she, as we discussed, would rather be hated than loved.
Yes. I mean, I think so. I don't know if people agree with
Feared.
I also
Feared.
like
Rather be feared
I
than
guess
loved.
so.
that. Feared.
bringing up Cersei. Also, I gotta ask, what's the psychology behind falling in love with your twin brother?
Asking the real questions here.
You know, that's a good question. I think a lot of that is. I think a lot of that is
Putting
first
you
of all
on the spot.
cultural. You know, I mean, there's still cultures today where what we would define as incest happen, and I don't think that that's necessarily like pathological. I don't think it's not something I would touch upon too much. I think there's other things within the Lannisters, within their value system, which could lead to problems,
Right.
bigger problems than just the fact that, I mean, usually, I don't know.
It's also like a response to abuse, right?
Right,
Because they had a terrible father, and growing up they kind of had some sort of emotional and sometimes physical abuse, and that's
and then her
why
husband.
yeah, and so they kind of
Right.
Oh, they had with each
and they
other.
bond. Right. Yeah. I was actually thinking that, but then I'm like, I don't know. Some people might find offense to that because
I'm not saying
some
that's
people might
the
find it
way to
normal.
go.
Right. So I mean, you wonder if. Actually, I was thinking about this. You wonder were they abused when they were younger? The funny thing about the Lannisters is, Cersei is particularly the worst one. The two brothers have pretty good hearts.
Yeah.
Their dad was tough with them. We don't know. I can't recall much about the mom. We know wasn't around for.
I think we know Tyrion was.
Yeah.
I think we can fairly
right.
say he was abused.
Right.
Because Tyrion had to, for one, his first girlfriend that he loved was turned into a prostitute in front of his eyes, forced into prostitution in front of his eyes.
Right.
And
Then had a relationship with his father.
yeah, and also the fun, and this was even before Shay. This was like, this was the way back when.
Are you talking about when he lost his virginity?
Yeah, and also his like.
She was already a
No, she wasn't.
Yeah, she
That's
was.
what he found out. He found out that she
she
never
was.
was a
Hired.
prostitute.
Oh.
That she was forced into prostitution only because she slept with Tyrion.
Wow.
Because Tywin is screwed up.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought Jamie paid her to have sex with him. That was the whole point. Because
No, in the I don't know.
In the
if
books,
in the
it's
books,
different. Okay.
Maybe it's in the books. Maybe I'm confusing.
Yeah, that's
things.
book
I
stuff.
have
I think.
something I really want to bring up. I want to bring up whether or not you guys think that Cersei is actually pregnant and what kind of disorder that could be.
Yeah.
What do you think, Dr. Haig?
So she could just be delusional according to your theory, or she could be pregnant, or there's a diagnosis called pseudocyesis, which is whatever, long word, but basically it's not just that you believe that you're pregnant, because there's a point where she kind of gasps and Tyrion kind of infers that she's pregnant, because you can actually in pseudocyesis actually have the objective signs of being pregnant: abdominal distension, the stopping of your period and all that stuff, the actual physical signs of it, and it's not true. And usually there's the power of the mind. It can influence your hormonal system and sort of emulate the pregnancy. So is she? The Lannisters. One thing you could say is that there's a learned behavior that's passed down to all of them. That is, it's about money. The Lannister always pays his debts. It's always about might. If I can force my way into any situation and buy myself into any situation. And she's very much taken on that philosophy, and because of that, she's abandoned her all the people that have loved her at one point. And so has she created this delusion in herself that the one person I'm going to make somebody that's going to love me, and is it real?
That's why
Is it
maybe
possible?
she had.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's why she maybe had that connection to her kids this entire time. Even Joffrey, who was a monster, she was still like, he's mine,
Yeah.
so
Ride or
we
die.
love each other.
Ride or
Is it
die.
possible that this could coincide with menopause? Like, you think that she went through menopause, stopped having her period, and maybe she's convincing herself that it's because she's pregnant?
I think she's seeing that the world is crumbling against her. I think she'd be a great White Walker. That's what I think.
The Night
she'd be
the
fantastic.
Night Queen.
Yeah.
I like it.
Okay. I want to play another game. Time out from discussion. Game time. Because you know what? I love games.
Games are great.
Okay.
I don't play games.
So
I eat
during
steak and eggs.
this game,
Stupid.
we're going to basically do 1-minute therapy sessions with a few characters from Game of Thrones. So
That's how it works.
we're gonna have
Therapy
it-
only needs to be 1 minute long, right?
That's all you need.
Yes,
That's all you
just
need.
making it quick. So I'm gonna give a chief complaint and talk about my background as one of the characters to Dr. Haig, and he's gonna give me some suggestions or ask me some questions. Okay, so for my character, my chief complaint is that I'm angry and I want revenge.
Okay, well, what's been going on? What's
What's troubling me?
Yeah, what's been troubling you? How long have you been angry for?
Pretty much as far back as I can remember, I've been very angry. I watched my sister's fiance kill my father. I was kidnapped by a man with a mutilated face. And don't take this the wrong way, but sometimes I kill people and I wear their faces.
How's that working for you? Do you like that?
Could it be?
I mean, it feels really good. It feels like I'm finally getting justice,
Oh, good. So what do you want from me? It sounds like you got your anger problem under control.
I mean, do you feel like my coping skills are healthy? I mean, I feel like I'm doing well for myself.
Okay, and where's your family in all this?
Oh, they're scattered, but I've just reunited with some of them.
Okay, good.
Some of them are dead. Most of them are dead. The few of them are still alive. I didn't kill them.
You don't appear particularly angry right now.
No. No, never. Never really do I appear angry.
Well, I think you're coping quite well, given all your trauma, and
It's
Do
like
I
just
guess-
keep
should I-
wearing faces.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
do you want to guess who I... In case it's not obvious.
I think that's a good question. Do you want to see changes in your life?
Yeah.
I like the way things are going.
Okay.
If anything, I just want to finish my list. I didn't mention this, but I sing a little song to myself.
here to kill you.
It's a kill. I have a kill list.
I don't think that's a healthy thing.
No.
But your minute is up.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay. My name was Arya, by the way.
Oh, what? What?
Okay, Ryan,
I don't know
go
what you want me to
ahead.
do with that.
Go ahead, Ryan.
So, Doc, I'm in love with a woman who doesn't love me back. And also I'm in love with her daughter, too. And I don't think she loves me back either, but I'm pretty sure I could win her over. I mean, her mom's long gone, and it bums me out, but I think I can get her daughter on board.
2 questions.
Also, what I really want more than anything is everything.
Interesting. Those are tough problems to have.
Healthy problems.
I think those are pretty big problems.
I want the world.
But you have a healthy ego.
Good.
May I ask, what is it that you're drawing over there?
Oh, what am I drawing over
Yes.
here? Oh, I don't know. I was doodling. I wasn't even really thinking about it. But
Let's see. Is that you with steak and eggs?
that's
It's just a throne of steak and eggs.
that's I don't know if you can see, but that's me.
Yeah.
And my ladies, mom
that's
and
good.
daughter.
So it really is on your mind.
It's me on the Iron Throne. That's what I want.
I see.
And I'm a simple guy. I just want everything.
Yeah.
I want the world.
So let me ask you this: Who do you love more, these 2 girls, women, or yourself?
Ooh.
Oh, jeez. I'd say probably at this point I love myself more. Yeah, at this point I do. But you know, there was a point where I loved this woman more than myself, and it almost got me killed. And now that I can't have her,
You know,
You said almost.
I
is
did.
big
I
word.
almost got cut in half
but like,
by the stronger guy. I'm a little guy.
Ah.
I got little
I would
appendages.
call them little digits.
what should he do,
Yo,
Doc?
that's my rapper name, Little Digits.
Your diagnosis is narcissistic personality disorder, and the treatment is a lot of therapy.
I like that. That sounds good for me,
Okay,
and
well,
that's good.
Yeah. See you next week.
All right, Doc.
I love being narcissistic. Yes, me.
By the way, I am Littlefinger.
Oh.
Yes.
Whoa!
That's
Who'da
so
thought it?
crazy. All right, Mr. Dave Chad, what do you got
Okay.
for us?
I got a big drinking problem. I got a big drinking problem, and you know, it's helped me through a lot of hard times, a lot of hard, tiny box times. But right now, I have a lot of responsibility. I'm a little conflicted about some choices I feel like I'm gonna have to make coming up, but I don't know.
So why don't you tell me what kind of decisions? How is this drinking impacting that? What's going on here?
Well, right now I'm keeping it mostly under control, but I do love the wine, and it's always there.
Yeah.
And right now, my boss is having sex with my buddy, and we used to serve together way back when. But now they're having sex, and I'm just like, I'm starting to think they might be cousins.
Ooh.
So I'm like, I don't know if I should say something or not. And right now I'm just kind of like, we're stuck on this boat, and I'm like, should I say something? But I don't know.
That's a lot of tension in the workplace, man.
Sounds like it's a little bit. Are you a little jealous of your
I mean, yeah.
friend?
Yeah, I mean, he's real cool and mopey, and he seems to do the brooding thing really well.
Yeah.
And I tried to brood, but it's mostly just drinking. And people think I'm funny and smart, so I got that going for me. And he's not really funny or smart. It seems like every decision he makes is terrible, but people like him, and he's good at the brood.
Interesting. You know, I think it's good to find your own path in life. What happened to the rest of your family?
I don't talk to them
Oh.
anymore. We're pretty. They're kind of. We had a big riff.
Yes.
Because I killed my dad. So
Oh.
That'll do it.
Were you
That
drinking
kinda did
at the
it.
time?
I think actually, you know what? I was pretty sober at the time, and then I started drinking
And
a
then you
lot.
started drinking a lot.
Yeah.
That was the best bender. It was just.
I think you might have more than a drinking problem.
I'm also very short. I don't mind it, but other people do.
Shorter than me, which is awesome.
Yeah.
We always got along.
Doc, what can we do for him? What do you think? What does he got?
They have these shoes that you can put heels in.
I'm fine with my size.
Yeah, and
It's
The
everything else.
drinking that might have to
you
change.
know, look, if you have other problems and you have drinking problems, even if your other problems are bigger, you got to get sober. You got to
Okay.
go. I think there's a Westeros 12 steps program. You might want to look into
12
that.
points?
Yeah, go to
Yeah.
the 12 points.
12-pointed
The 12
barrel.
12-pointed
It's
barrel.
basically just serving at the wall.
Avoid the poppy seed.
It's drinking all the different drinks
milk-
around Westeros
Yeah.
till you find it.
Well,
Okay.
all right,
thanks,
you know.
Doc.
I'm Tyrion.
What?
Whoa, that's so
Surprise!
What?
This
Oh,
whole time.
that's weird.
We got problems, y'all. Cheers.
Well, I feel like that was really fun. Thanks, Doctor, for all your help. Cheers to our
pleasure.
problems. Okay, I want to go now to Danny.
That was fun.
And thank you. I'm glad everybody had fun. Great. Danny, now we sort of talked about this, Doc, when we were prepping for the show, about how the show sort of rewards people. The universe in this show rewards the people who they want with supernatural powers. Can you kind of talk about that? Because obviously, if Cersei had dragons, she would not use them the way Danny is.
Yes, I mean, she has probably one of the most, at least in the battlefield, one of the. At one point, it was almost an absolute power. It was like the nuclear weapons of the Game of Thrones world, and she
Yeah,
was like the
essentially.
sole bearer of it at one point. So it was almost as if the world, the laws of nature, the higher powers in the Game of Thrones put her in a position of if she fulfilled her destiny to be the supreme leader. She was destined that way. There is a sense of entitlement that comes along with that. And I think that one of her biggest battles psychologically has been sort of balancing that with being humble, because there's times that she's made mistakes, and she's made good decisions. She's brought Tyrion along and listened to him most of the time, or at least considered it. And so, but she is vulnerable, as we see, when one of those dragons goes down. So
yeah, that's like her supernatural power, but it's unchecked.
Right.
I mean, like, there's not a force that's, can put her in place, sort of. If she was Cersei and she was to use these dragons the wrong way, we'd be in big trouble.
Right. So I think that there's something sort of, the higher powers, whatever they are in the world of the Game of Thrones, is putting her, rewarding in some ways that lineage. Somewhere, not only does she have the power, but she has the sort of leadership qualities to be able to sort of wield that power. So she's a very, she's got good odds.
She's also someone who she lost a child, and as well as her husband, but that made her become the mother of dragons. So she puts all of her maternal instinct into the dragons themselves, which is that healthy, or is she just like a very fiery cat lady?
Well, I think that's a good question. I think Jon Snow was questioning that himself, so we'll see.
Good
I don't know.
point.
Right.
I don't know.
What would be
But that's a very good metaphorical, like it's sort of a transition there, right? And I think
Yeah.
definitely the writers are thinking about this when they're.
What do you think is going to happen? I mean, we talk about this every month. What do you think is going to happen when Daenerys finds out that she is Jon Snow's aunt?
I think she's
Right,
gonna
it's
be
aunt,
down.
not cousins.
She's not gonna. She's gonna go. All, she doesn't care. I don't think she's gonna care.
You don't
Yeah,
think she'll
I don't
care?
think so either.
No.
Something you said earlier when you were talking about incest was that there's different cultural, beliefs.
Right.
And one of the things that I always bring up when everyone's like, they shouldn't get together, even though they love the Lannisters together, weirdly. But they say...
Why do you look at me when you say that?
I'm just saying.
I do. I'll
you
take
threw a little
responsibility
stink eye
here.
over there.
Targaryens
together.
are like, they're always marrying like within the family. That's their tradition, is to marry within the family. And granted, that kind of that dilutes the bloodline a little bit, but now it's a little stronger on either side. So
I mean, I think that verifies it, and true love doesn't know boundaries.
Ah,
Right?
Yeah.
boundaries, is that
Exactly.
true?
No, that's definitely not
Medical
true.
opinion.
Exactly.
It's not true, but
I
probably-
agree.
Yeah.
and
I've been
that's,
saying that
folks, is
every
from a
show.
doctor.
That's from a doctor.
That's
Your
from a
diagnosis
doctor.
is true love has no boundaries.
Just fall in love and all your problems melt away.
That's not
What
healthy.
I'm saying.
Why not?
No,
Why
it's
not?
because then you're obsessed with falling in love, and then that's your biggest problem, is you feel like once you find love, you'll be fulfilled, and that's not always the truth.
Yes.
What if my biggest problem is I'm seeking independence?
What, is this in person? Like,
I'm just saying,
You?
and then I fall in love, and all of a sudden my biggest problem is huge now. I'm just saying.
You might need to break up with someone. That's what you're bringing up.
You know what it is.
Steak and eggs.
That's how you break
Steak
up
and
with
eggs.
her? I want steak and eggs and women.
Listen, it's not you. I have a desire for
And
steak and eggs.
You're just the salad I come home to.
Oh, God. This has gotten so Just fall in love. Forget all of this. Just rewind and cut out the last 5 minutes. Just
Please.
fall in love. Everything will go away. It's going to be perfect.
No.
Okay. Jon
Please,
Snow,
don't do that.
Speaking of love, Jon Snow. I love him too. So obviously his supernatural power is that he can come back from the dead and he can possibly be risen again in the future. He's destined to rule and live with Dany and be in love.
Before we move on, for just 1 second, I just want to say, fall in love and all your problems will be solved is Sansa season 1.
Yeah, there you
Just
go.
so you know, what happened to her? Joffrey.
Yeah.
So anyways, back to Jon Snow.
Again, don't listen to that part. Jon Snow. Love.
Well, John, that coming back to life. I mean, he's a product of a supernatural. That's not actually was his supernatural power, right? That was somebody. That was
Sure,
Melisandre
but not everyone
brought him
can just.
back.
He was chosen.
But he was
you know?
chosen. So like
that's a lot of
he's-
pressure.
That's right.
Universe.
Right. So when you talk about like prophecy, his prophecies, I mean, he is a product of like destiny, right? So I think that that's interesting. You know, if it's kind of like, I mean, people have it happens to people in real life, right? They have a heart attack, they're dead, they get resuscitated, they come back and they have a renewed sense of purpose. His sense of purpose, I think, has become very solidified that he, you know, needs to become leader. I think it comes, or whatever it is, but I think that it kind of touches upon something very interesting because he's got Targaryen genetics, right, with Stark values, right, because he was
Very
raised,
noble.
right, and so it's almost as if like the fact that he is a Targaryen and he may be in this sort of incestuous relationship, which is actually good for the Targaryens. It's almost like that the problems that they had, the Targaryens, that madness, the Mad King, whatever it was that led to that, is going to be injected with some good old Stark values, you know?
Yes.
And it's like the destiny, like the higher powers, the god of the light or whatever wants that, you know? So it's almost as if the next season it looks like it might be a good ending, you know? You don't know.
A
But
marriage with
yeah.
love.
You also have
So all your problems will go away.
that'll haunt my dreams tonight. I'm just gonna have these dreams of steak and eggs, and then it's just like,
And then Elmo pops up.
I'll never
wanna-
live that steak and eggs thing.
I also
down,
want to
I'll
bring
tell
up
you
what Jon Snow is. Jon Snow is kind of like, he had a long time. He was very sex negative. Like, he really hated sex.
I know where to
right.
put it.
yes.
He was afraid. He had a very
You know
like
nothing.
oath against it. You know nothing.
Definitely not.
He was afraid. He was afraid of sex until he found Ygritte. And so he's coming out of a lot of shame. He still has some shame.
Yes, yeah, you know, I mean, I don't know.
You guys are still
I'm
giggling.
focused.
It's okay. Go to your steak and eggs
You guys
place.
brought up
Go to
sex, which he calls steak and eggs. Now he's confronting it for the first time.
That's not what's happening.
You are crying.
Just the way you what was your Egret impression?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
what was that?
I won't do that again.
You know
can't make me.
nothing.
you know nothing.
You know nothing. Don't know.
You know nothing. Jon Snow.
No.
Listen, it just came to me. I wanted to say it that way. I can't control this.
Yeah, it's
It all stems from my love and steak and eggs. And
amen.
I do have a question from someone in the chat to you.
ooh.
Yes.
Asking about asking
no
what
personal
like
advice.
what is the psychology of George R.R. Martin? And Augustus on our chat is asking that.
Ooh, the writer of Game of Thrones, the books.
Because you
George
got to
R. R.
remember,
Martin.
he's someone who's
What's the psychology of
of the writer of these books who created this world, this fantastical world
That's
for
a
maybe
great
even
question.
himself to live in. Right?
also creates characters that we love, that he loves, that he kills off instantly.
he kills his babies. I mean, what do you think about that?
I mean, that's a wonderful question. I'll kind of skirt around it because it's not good to say something about someone you haven't met, you know.
That's very gracious of you.
So that being said, I think that like when I watch episodes, every time I see something, there's a current affair that it relates to. And I think that he's very insightful into human nature, and it kind of just reminds me of like art in general. Like if you want to like accentuate something, you like highlight it, and every time he's highlighting something, it's sort of with like this like supernatural force, and he's drawing upon certain characteristics. I don't know how much I can get into like political things here, but
yeah, I mean, we brought up the idea that it's kind of global warming is involved,
you know. But basically, like I'll say this about psychiatry. You know, if you give somebody a diagnosis, you give them sort of, you take away responsibility from them.
Ooh.
You know, so you blame it on a problem. So a lot of times, some people are just bad, and some people are just evil, and you can blame it on a psychological problem, but that's not like, that doesn't mean there's a diagnosis. And there's a lot of people that we want to say that they have, like, oh, they have some psychological problem, but there's a lot of things that he's making commentary on, that like, these things are bad. How is this happening in your real life? I think he's very in tune to human nature, his psychology. Although there's a lot of murder, it's making points, it's drawing lines, and it's making you move on to the next thing, and it's making you think. And I think it's very it's brilliant.
Yeah, and maybe he's like taking his issues and problems with society and funneling them into art, which is a healthy thing to do.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, I think all artists are, you know, a little troubled, and so it's escapism. Like, create a different world. Like, we all do that.
Fantasy.
It's a fantasy.
Yes.
One last thing I want to say about Jon Snow is something we had discussed about him just having a good heart and good instincts and taking risks and believing people will, like, that'll help him, like, succeed and survive in this world. The fact that he does trust his instincts and his gut, because he always does, even when people are like, don't be honest, like, look what you cost us, especially in the finale with Cersei. But it's like the fact that he always does trust his instincts, I feel like he has been rewarded for that. I think most of the characters who have supernatural powers in this world.
Well, does he always follow his instincts, though? Because he tends to not want to be the leader. He tends to not want to be the one to kind of lead the charge, but he's forced into it. He feels he's obligated to it.
I feel like people just follow him, though. I feel like he's never like, hey, follow me, put your hands up if you're going to follow me. He just goes and does whatever he thinks is the right thing to do.
And that's
then
why people follow
him.
That's why they do, because, I mean, who better can you trust someone in power or with power than someone who doesn't inherently want it?
He's beautiful, and he doesn't even know it.
Yeah.
It's fun.
One more character I want to talk about before we wrap up is Bran, being the three-eyed raven and being able to warg. I mean, being able to see the past is huge. Like, he's basically the secret keeper, like the truest account of memories. Like, we probably don't all remember our memories as it really happened. Like, we remember it as we want to. So the fact that he has, like, the truest account of memories, I think, is so powerful in this world, especially as we saw what happened to Littlefinger. I mean, when he was there.
It's a damn shame. Mistrial of the century.
Oh, God.
So we went from, like, emo Bran to, like, a wise old god now, basically.
Yeah, well, he wasn't. We skipped. I feel like he's emo-y now.
He's totally emo.
Imagine, what if a parent came to you with their kid and said, my kid went off on vacation. He came back. Now he's touching trees all the time. He's saying he sees everything. He sees everything about my past, and he's never smiling.
I put him on medications.
Okay, cool. And that's why you're a psychiatrist and not a psychologist. Boom.
Yeah, man, it's got to be an incredible, like, burden. Right.
Yeah, but obviously, like, he has, like we were mentioning, the resilience, that Stark psychology. It's made Arya resilient. It's made him mentally resilient, so he could handle this kind of power.
So I think it goes back to that question from the chat, that, you know, George Martin is rewarding good values, you know, at least so far. And so, like, again, somehow, whatever, the higher powers made it so he lost he was supposed to be a warrior, right? He was being trained, Bran, and he lost all his physical sort of abilities to fight, and he was rewarded with maybe the highest form of power, which is supreme knowledge, right? And so, sort of, again, destiny rewarding the Starks, and it's interesting.
But it also feels like it also took away a piece of his soul. Like, it feels like he's a different person.
Yeah, he's kind of emotionless. Kind of
Doesn't he have to be, though? Because when we're talking about, like, time loops and stuff, I mean, the only reason why he started dreaming about the three-eyed raven was because he was in bed, because he was pushed out a window, and it all came full circle. It was almost meant to be, right? So it's almost like
And also,
he has no control over his destiny. He was meant to be a paraplegic. He was meant to be the three-eyed raven. So, I mean, once you realize you don't have that much control over your own destiny, everything is meant to happen.
Right. Well,
how does that,
I mean, it's very Zen. I mean, you could say that about anybody. How much control do you have of your destiny? It's very Zen. And it's like sort of that philosophy where the more you know, the more knowledge you gain, the more suffering that you're aware of. And you kind of have to be Zen in some ways. I mean, he's being Zen by kind of being emotionless, and we'll see where that goes.
But he's also probably has a little PSD. Or he has like PTSD from creating Hodor. From like he knows that's really when he kind of went into this dark emo path, is when he realized that Hodor is the way he is because of him. Yeah.
There's a huge sense of guilt there, and that maybe has made him sort of withdraw and isolate his emotions.
Well, we have to wrap up, unfortunately, but I want to say just overall, like what we were talking about, the Starks having a good value system, it makes them be able to like confront challenges with little emotional strife. Like they're good leaders, opposite of the Lannisters, who we talked about being like materialistic, and like they obviously have an unhealthy value system that compromises like their peace of mind because all they want is power. I mean, like you said,
family split.
Yeah, I mean they're like at opposite poles. So just in general,
that was really cool.
Overall,
there you go.
Thank
you so much for coming in.
Thanks for coming in.
It was very fun.
This
deep.
was
Deep.
such a good discussion. Where can the fans follow you on social media, Dr. Haig Goenjian?
There's Dr. Haig LA on
on Twitter?
Yep.
Awesome. So it's at Dr. Haig
no
LA.
spaces. Dr. HAIG.
Awesome. I hear some
Tweet
Mac
him.
the Knife coming on.
No.
Can you teach us the psychology of dancing?
No.
This is how I die. Right now.
Wait, can you interpret what's wrong with us by our dance moves?
What's wrong with me, Doc? What's wrong with me?
Speaking of dance moves, you can find me at mrdavchild or davechild.com and watch me dance with my friend Chris Fleming on the Darling Side music video. You can find it on davechild.com or go to mrdavechild on Twitter.
Awesome. Where can we find you, Ryan?
We gotta end this before the song ends, and our poor
I
Dave
gotta hear a
Child
new
is
song.
I'm Ryan Malaty. You can find me at Ryan Malaty everywhere, and you can also check out a new series that I just did called My Dead Ex on Go90.com.
Woo! I saw it. It's awesome and hilarious. So if you need a new show, go check it
Go
out.
binge
Just
it.
Download Go90 for free. It's an app.
Yep.
I'm Kristen Elizabeth Snyder. Thanks so much for joining me. You can follow me at Cinematic Escape. You can join us next month. These off-season shows are once a month, the last Thursday of every month. So our next show is going to be April 26th. Mr. Dave Child's going to lead it.
Yeah, it's going to be best fighters and fights of Game of Thrones. So we're going to fight about that.
Yeah,
Lots
we will.
to discuss because I definitely have an opinion about that.
We got opinions.
All right, guys.
Just remember, fall in love.
Yeah.
It'll solve all your problems.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
You know nothing.
We love you guys. Thanks
Bye-bye.
for tuning in. Have a great night. Same time, same place next month. Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Keven Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
You know nothing.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.
I said, Jenny Diver.